You ready?
Yeah.
You going?
Anytime you like.
Alright. Remembering Bernard. On Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Fridays she biked to the Polytech, to the big room's ellipse of easels, a low platform, the side of a single bed against the blackboard, windows whited out, a tiny office bathed the morning sun. Everyone was late as the room warmed. He always said to sit or lie down. Drawing is done quickly now, and you have to stand and change to another silhouette. In the 80s you sat down and stayed like that all day, and every 20 minutes, according to union rules, you could get up, move the pane around, and look at the drawings against the poor strung-out bastards who had chosen to compete, the dead-eyed girls who logically followed some great old master. Some teachers let you choose the position, and others wanted legs and arms just so, that later unbalanced her. Bernard was easy. He let you lie natural, except he absent-mindedly left you there the week. Protocol demanded silence. Sometimes he drew an explanatory torso which resembled a cage, and disappeared, to return in time to dismiss his drawing class for lunch. He drank at the intimate cubicles at the Robbie. He was balding, his face falling in, and from blue eyes hung black curtains. She drank till her bones stopped aching, and painted portraits. A good hand with a brush, he said. The week he wasn't there at all, the class slowly drifted away from the dead silence. On Friday afternoon 3 were left. Because he was young, the funeral was huge at Iona Church on the graceful flank of Keary's Bay. He was buried. He went into the ground. His son took a shovel and filled the grave. The kids were swimming round, paddled in tubes, imitating kayaks, waiting for their mother, who worked late at a restaurant. They swarmed round the Baton Rouge and must give you a stiffy. She was so strong and proud of her bearing, though on closer inspection, deficient in the upper regions, and her woman years always on the verge of collapse. In her shabby costume practised 1, 2, jump into arcs and circles above the pale cracked water, and the lifeguards day dragged out with no music under the great glass cathedral, rough benches rising along the south side, and on the side backed into the hill beside the kayak shed nestled the old dive pool, the platform a ghost settled by giant progeny 50 metres north, and on the 2 low boards once flanked the platform, the nudie-roody lady and the little girls fluttered round taking to air, running round in the cold tondu like nobody's business. "You are rolling like a gymnast," said McNeil of Christchurch at Christmas, who successfully navigated 4 double somersaults off the 7.5 and cracked his ribs when he slipped on the rough benches above the pool. This is not a story about what people did. They are a speck in the landscape, or should I say the manscape, the wholly artificial shape of man's creation, to serve only his ends, by golly. What a cruel lot of bastards they are. And there with fellow water sprites she danced, and the power came into her hips instead of her shoulders, because she biked to South Dunedin with the chainsaw on her back, a homelike 14-inch red sharp cut like a dentist's drill, till her son fetched the wood for his birthday kiln and cut it, for she came from Waimelkid, where many waters flow, absently navigating the frenzied Friday traffic, because all the practical men had fled the manufactured horde of yo-ho students where she lived, by the river. It was so far to anywhere useful, her bikes ran out at astonishing speed, rather like colonials who lurked too long in the shade of the university towers. Next day, with a sky-threatening drizzle, the lady and her carpenter put together a shed she previously assembled from rags of the old house next door. He had strong blue eyes, a Roman nose with a not disagreeable knob on it, a large mouth whose word currents rival Gibraltar Straits, upon, alas, a sack of potatoes. He may have done better if his mum didn't advise him woman is tart, and he hammered the shed together, made a cut the gleaned tin walls with blunted jigsaw, so the roof overhang and the wash-house door studded with generations of gnawing insects lay heavy and flat against the ivy wall, nailed with a view of the midwinter sun. She peeps over the high brick wall and casts down Al-Qaeda's driveway. Forgetting her sister's letter again, she found Drummond Street's music so sweet she searched for a singer. Someone switched it off. From the sunken bungalow on the corner came Jean of the dead armed spirit, whose husband, a giant of a man, they were motorbike crazy, perished of melanoma on the sharp green hills of Purikanui, in a cottage sheltered under pine trees, and Jean made hats. Boots firm on the rough side of Duchess Avenue, she traverses the tar seal and muddy rhododendron bank, past the brightly painted zoo of wild steel cartoon characters. Then trees arch overhead and the passageway dips, where the birds often chorus, rising to a graceful arc above the silly city as far as squid boats on the sea, and the platform tower rises before her. Some skateboarders are leaping round all crooked tonight. The loudspeaker is still broken. She straightens their jumps and they whinge about not having the bubbles. Harden up, she says. Under the street lamp a hedgehog pauses on the curb. Bernard. The fit young hedgehog Bernard pricks her hand, but doesn't curl up, and she pops him in a tussock bush. When her friend Colleen died, while the lover ran home to claim the house, she did as Bernard's son did, and took up the spade and covered the coffin. She sometimes imagined all the dead people she knew meeting up in a bland, non-judgmental heaven like he was. Flatmates Progress. Flatmates Progress, or Beware of Pokey Pickers Who Want to Be Accountants. Three weeks after Shania, Bones and Lurch decamped, Hino revised the wisdom of a solitary life and let it out the front room was ready. Weedy, in his warm pensioner flat, offered to help her. Lippy's room in town was no good. His ex's family came after him, it seemed, after one of the kids, those little black bastards, he said, threw a chair at him. He couldn't see why it was him called to court. He needs a new place in a hurry, said Weedy. It was his third break-up with Tammy in 3 years. All women went berserk on him. Hino's place is a dump, thought Lippy, but it'll do for a wee while, so he accosted her as she biked along Main Street and pushed a hundy in her hands. Hino knew he flitted around when he went out late, and easier to look at than Bones, in ancient underpants, skeletal by the leaning toilet in the dawn, or Lurch's snaky tattoos and heft of a badly strung puppet. Lippy wandered round Chipper in his short shorts, golding honey in the sun, till close up his tortured mouth came ugly and clear, and daily drank alcoholic liquors. I hope you don't mind, I brought a few people round. She leaned on the broom in the warehouse. She leaned the broom on the washhouse wall and smiled. About time, she said. I was beginning to think you had no real friends. Skinny Barker and Maggot tore round the leaning toilet, with a couple of duzzy lion reds. Hino's feud with Skinny Barker only lasted 15 years. And how could he be friends with Maggot? Now what was Dr. Morland's March mantra? Good manners prevail. Good manners prevail. Good manners prevail. They sat around the long table, $5 for 25 years it was, and fetched a chair. Have you met Rob? Said Skinny. Do you have violence here? Asked Rob, by the way of introduction. Her stomach knotted. I don't allow it in the house. Did you catch anything green on your hunting trip? It was early in the season. Would you like a smoke? Skinny was bygones be bygones. If you don't have any, there's more for us. Maggoty, she thought, and went to the sink. On his way to the door, Rob touched her lightly, twice, the little mere. 2 good slaps for his wages. Lippy, the infinitely polite, stood up and shouted, You're violent! You're violent! Yes, the cry went up and stood behind everything he said and did after that. Hino stuck him straight in the never box. Well, back from the door, as he sat in his room, Hino told him, Your mates mean more to you than any woman. Do you like men? He leapt up and did a creepy, snaky thing with his fists, leapt forward and hovered over her. I've lived with a beautiful woman, and if you ever hit me, I'll hit you back. And I'm not scared of you. He was gone from poodle to nervous Alsatian. She never stood closer than a metre to him again. Everyone knew Weedy was dying. The Jim Beam that fed into his arthritis and rented his knuckles to Satan, you could put those horrendous knobs on a cigarette packet, each once supple joint magnified into a soup spoon that pushed his fingers into a permanent fist, and in the good hand he held a cigarette lighter. His tidy grey gristle dead drunk on oft-told tales and bourbon every Tuesday. Before it pulled the juice out of his body, the bourbon worked like CRC and the pain vanished momentarily. Before he woke with his bowels twisted and his cell phone card run out, he lay stuck in bed a day and a half. The hospital kept him 2 days and he was back at the pub, which was how he got a lift to Rosie's party. Jeremiah had Christy, a job and a car. He was a rich man. It was Rosie's lucky party. The river mercifully split its banks 2 weeks after she sold. The back lawn with the giant swing still mud from the river's mementos was out front, between the dry house and the damp barn. "I'm going to have another party, a more intimate one," said Rosie, the splendid Slavic face, firm on her 2 new hips and on her 16th beer and 40th joint of the day. No one was sure if she was going up north to succour her ailing greaseball or hassle the ascetic ex and his new family. But you only have to worry if her hair comes down, and her hair was still in a bun when Christy, the sober driver, her fair long crop and fringe dead straight, clucked everyone into her car, arthritis from childhood, loose as a fine ballerina. On the cusp of the city, a crowd of smokers hung around outside the old pub. Inside, a party girl with short black hair sung silver black, even and clear. Hene's legs were covered, the short lace dress grubby, her chrome and copper hair on good behaviour, immediately touched by an overstuffed balloon of a man with hair stiff as Valentino. She rebuffed and put her coin on the pool table. The players stopped aiming at the ball. Called up to sing, everyone stopped and listened. Dancing in the dark with its long repeat line ending, she revved into several different voices. The top-high scream a little under volume. The chap after her name had taken over the pool table. Across the room she saw Heidi, purveyor of old men, and found a seat. "Did you go to Rosie's party?" asked Heidi, smiling with grey, black-lined teeth, accompanied by a rather excellent fellow. "Rosie's party? Let's go, let's go." "There's no sober driver," said Heidi. "I'm sober." She hadn't had a joint for 4 hours, and her beer stood half empty. Someone came and rubbed her shoulders. Her eyebrows lifted a centimetre. Through the door from the cold came Tricia, Kristen, Jeremiah, Lippy, and Weedy of Wainakarua. Hene smiled broadly at Jeremiah's merry cousin Trish. "And how was Rosie's party?" "It was cold, and 2 girls had a fight. It wasn't very good," said Trish. The inflated man, silver-haired, knelt down behind Hene. "Take me home with you." "Fuck off," she said. At the 4th refrain, a blue-eyed woman of several chins piped up from 2 seats down. "When my son left home, he was at my back door and asked me. He thought he was in. I never locked the door at all, but now I always lock it. And he's been living with a woman for 20 years. As Trish followed the party out, Hene fell in behind and pushed the glass door firmly in the faces of a pursuing team of local icons. It was only a song. Her feet hurt. Limping, she asked for a ride down the valley. "Can you sit between Lippy and Weed?" Already in the back of the car. "There's 3 in the back now," someone called. Kristen in charge. "We'll leave the ladies in peace," said Hene. She turned and limped away, took off her shoes, and walked painlessly home, not stealing flowers because her hands were full of shoe. "You're lucky I'm not an abusive person," she told Lippy, busy toasting white bread in the cooling kitchen, the cold blowing fast up the hall, and retreating to the porch. "I feel the need to call you useless." "I'm sorry." "Why is that?" Picking up the hash-stained steak knife. "You didn't tell me about Rosie's party." "Ha! It was a great party too. I had a great time." She thought a punch-up between 2 girls might be enjoyable for a misogynist, as he was said to be by Mitre 12.5. She whipped up to the sunshed and went back towards the kitchen. He was pouring his hand-picked from the far Himalayas. And you never buy any toilet paper or washing powder. I have to put $5 on the rent to cover the costs. She grabbed her living room purdah from the couch, retrieved the studded belt she found in Grange Street that morning in a plastic bag with some modern gear drying by the hedge, and hung the belts on the nail amongst the hooks in the hall. That might motivate you to sharpen your communication skills, came out her tranquilizing office voice. I didn't know until I went to Edie's. I didn't know myself. I wouldn't have told you anyway. You're a cunt of a woman, he ventured. And what a magnificent cunt it is, her voice carried in the night, hushed before the second wave of loud voices and cracking wood. At the destination of her next flight, she sat down to examine the lurid spotlight junk mail with enchantingly priced Renaissance Art Nouveau thermal floral curtaining. If that's the way you feel, it might be a good idea to look for somewhere else. There's no point in being here if you can't tell me of somebody's party we both know. No point at all if you feel like that. Something banged a little hard. And please don't break anything. He pulled the door shut quietly. On Monday her bread stayed cold in the toaster. That's it.